Members of the committee, my name is Rebekah Paxton from the Employment Policies Institute. Here's what actually happened when DC passed a similar law a couple of years ago. 5% of full-service restaurant and bar jobs were lost. That represents thousands of workers in the city. Servers and bartenders lost their tips. One server told the DC City Council that her average tipping percent went from 25 to 18 in 1 year. U.S. Census Bureau data shows weekly pay, including tips, dropped about $1,800 per the average employee per year. Bureau of Labor Statistics quarterly data shows in total, DC workers lost nearly $12 million. And DC didn't even make it to full elimination of its tip credit. The fallout was so bad, the city voted to undo that part of the law. This would be disastrous for Maryland, and I urge an unfavorable report.
Could you just repeat those statistics a little slower about what the true effect was in DC and what the ultimate outcome was? Because there are a lot of numbers, and you went through them really fast. And we have an economic challenge in Maryland with our budget and with our economy, keeping up with neighboring states and so forth. But we're talking about this today. Make sure everybody understands what happened in Washington.
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. There are a lot of numbers, so apologies for doing that really fast. So we tracked what was going on in DC, and we tracked it using Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics data. We pulled it directly from there. You may have heard about the DC office of the budget director report. We ended up getting called in to talk to a lot of city council members there because that report muddled different industries, different time periods that actually had nothing to do with Initiative 82 in DC. And so that's why we tried to keep these stats directly as reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So we tracked that a year and a half after the Initiative 82 went into effect, DC was down 5% of its full service restaurant and bar employment. That's a pretty big number. Usually unemployment in a good year hovers around 2.5 to 3%. That's a really big jump. And that was 5 times higher than downturns that Maryland was experiencing at the time. So DC was unique in that it wasn't just like a regional downturn. Servers and bartenders testified in DC about how they were losing their tips, how they felt like they were making less money, but the data supports that. So U.S. Census Bureau data, we took individual reports as collected by the U.S. Census Bureau and found that 2 years after Initiative 82 went into effect, those workers were making on average $1,800 less a year than they were before the law went into place. And that's the average worker. For folks who are on the lower end of the pay scale, the discrepancy was actually far bigger. They were losing about $3,400 per employee per year in the lowest 25 percentile of earners. And again, we looked at, Bureau of Labor Statistics data, they amalgamate all of that. And the estimate was after Initiative 82 had gone into place, workers had lost about $12 million in earnings.
Yeah. Thank you. Everybody's, I think, on the same page as far as the end goal. Everybody wants everybody to do better, but it's important that everybody understands the true statistics. So thank you.
Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious if there's no limit on what someone can make with tips, correct? There's no limit. And they can take as many tips as they want or as high as they want. Okay. I was curious about the stats from DC are very instructive because it's basically exactly what people predicted would happen has happened. And that was what would happen here in some fashion. Is there, on the economic side, is there any analysis that anyone's seen, and maybe you may know from, and I'm trying to remember the name of the organization, but we now have no tax on tips at the federal level. We haven't adopted that in Maryland, unfortunately. We should. Because I think that allows for people to even have greater growth potential. Right now, if you're a tip worker, you have not unlimited growth potential because obviously there's limits to everything, but you basically don't have any limit on what you can make. Whereas if you have a wage, you're pretty much capped. You can still accept tips, but tips can be more limited. So is there any analysis on how that could impact now that there will be no tax on tips?
Well, I think the logic would say the data across the country is that tips go down when the tipped wage goes up. And in this case, it would be going up by 600% nearly. When tips go down, that no tax on tips doesn't mean anything because if you're not earning tips, you're not able to get that benefit. So we ourselves as an organization haven't crunch those numbers, but I think the logic is there. And there's a lot of data in a lot of different states that shows that tip earnings go down when this kind of policy goes into place.